We will be recording, and there will be resources that will be emailed out to you after our presentation today as well. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Resilient Roots Seminar, Project Reboot, the science and strategy behind healthier tech use. My name is Sean Andrew, Program Coordinator with the Charter SELPA. It's my privilege to welcome you on behalf of the El Dorado County Office of Education. Resilient Roots began as a response to what we were seeing when students returned to in-person learning after the pandemic. A group of program specialists and myself wanted to create something that could really support schools with behavior, mental health, and wellness challenges that were emerging, especially for our most marginalized students, including students with disabilities. From that idea, Resilient Roots grew into a webinar series, and now even a podcast, all designed to bring schools direct access to professional strategies and resources. And today marks the third installment in this year's series. This year, our theme is connection. Connection is essential to student wellness, mental health, and a strong school community. And as we talk about digital health, screen time, and social media, we're also recognizing the broader challenges schools continue to navigate, the long-term impacts of COVID, chronic absenteeism, the effects of shifting federal policies on many of our immigrant families. In times like these, connection keeps students visible, keeps staff supported, and our communities grounded. Vivek Murthy reminds us in his book Together that human connection is essential for our health as food and water. That idea really guides our work today because healthier tech habits matter, but so does strengthening the relationships that hold our school communities together. Assembly Bill 3216 also comes at an important moment, giving schools a framework as they create policies around digital well-being and connection. We are grateful to have Dino Ambrosi with us today to help us lead us in the learning and share his expertise regarding Project Reboot. Before we jump in, we can go ahead and move to the next slide and see who's here with us today. So in the chat, if you could just give us your name, school, employment, what region you're in. Like I stated previously, I'm in Los Angeles area, but if you're in the Bay Area, Sacramento, San Diego, or other, and also, where's your cell phone at this moment? Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, my cell phone, I have to admit, is on my desk as well, but it is turned over. Our hopes for you being here today is really to discuss the neuroscience and impact of digital dependence and then how that affects our students. We're going to explore some opportunities uh, to engage students in discussions about creating more balanced technology habits and fostering healthier relationships with technology. And we want you as schools to feel prepared to communicate how the smartphone policy supports student well-being and create more mindful, connected learning communities. You see our agenda after going over these discussion questions and a review of Assembly Bill 3216. Dino's going to join us to discuss the science of strategy behind healthier tech use. There will be a Q&A period and some resources. And we really want to just thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here with us and close out. With that being said, I'm going to pass it to my colleague. Oh, yeah, here's some participation tips. If you have any questions, this is a webinar, but if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Keep the norms in mind, being respectful of others' opinions and their right to disagree, and everyone's airtime, listening respectfully, and most importantly, just commit to learning. We're here to learn beside you as well.
All right,
Now,
thank you.
now I'll pass it off to you, Austin.
No problem. Yeah, and so if you joined us early, you notice we're navigating a Zoom webinar instead of the regular Zoom. So there is also the Q&A function, so that should work, but the chats may be more accessible for everyone to see. So we encourage you to use that. Okay, so yeah, my name is Austin Coles. I'm a program specialist with the El Dorado Charter SELPA. I'm also Sean's co-host for the podcast that we've started on Resilient Roots School Wellness Series. And so, as you may have learned as you registered for this event, we wanted to focus in on digital wellness and also ground us in the law that is coming up very soon for us. And so, you may have heard of this already. This is Assembly Bill 3216, otherwise known as the Phone Free School Act. So I wanted to ground us in a little bit of the legal obligations that we will be having starting next school year. So this is a little bit of information that we'll review quickly before we get into the discussion, but also wanted to ensure you that I have a summary of the bill as well as kind of an analysis of the implications for our schools that can be sent out, that will be sent out to everybody post this event. But for now, what's important to know is this bill is taking effect next school year. So by July 1st of 2026, it's now saying that all public schools, including our charter schools, must adopt a policy to limit or prohibit student smartphone use. So previously, schools could have this policy, and I know several of our charters do, but it's going to become a must starting July 1st. And so there's a lot of information in the bill itself about the research that they've done to kind of explain why this bill came about. But ultimately, as we probably all know, the goal is to kind of decrease these negative effects that are seen with excessive phone use, including increased anxiety, depression, and some other mental health issues. And then also ensure that our students are being able to engage in their school curriculum without distraction of their cell phone. A few other important things to note is there are some exceptions. So schools are not permitted to create an absolute ban with their policy. There's a couple scenarios where schools are going to have to consider that students may be allowed to use their phones in cases of an emergency, which I know is a big concern for many families and communities. So if there's an emergency, if it's under the supervision of a teacher or principal. So if it is part of the school curriculum or activity that you're working on, you're allowed to use the phone. And then also if there's a health need or it's related to an IEP need. So if the phone is required by a doctor's note or by a student's IEP for any reason, then of course those students are also going to be permitted to access their smartphone. So that's kind of the bill in a nutshell. Again, we'll have plenty of opportunity to discuss this with you one-on-one if you want to consult more. This is not, as you can tell, a special education related law, but it is going to be impacting all of our schools. And we also wanted to connect it to what we all think about in our Resilient Roots series, student wellness, and how this might be an impact. So now that we've kind of talked a little bit about the obligations of the law, we did want to dive into discussing and kind of getting a discussion going with our participants about our current perceptions and kind of where we're feeling about student cell phone use right now. So we're going to do a shift into a Mentimeter. I'm going to do a stop share, and my colleague should be sharing now. Yeah, so if you haven't used Mentimeter before, there's a couple ways that you can access it. Because we all mentioned our phones are very close to us, you can use your phone to do the QR code. You can also join at menti.com with the code that's listed up there, 533-42130. Awesome. And so this is live, so we'll see who's with us as we get started. So we started with a simple one just to gauge who's in the room. I'm liking that we have a lot of administrators here because they'll probably be heavily involved in policy making. Mental health providers. I know we only had so much room, so we grouped a lot of people into other, but we're glad you're here as well. And as you'll see, there is a significant need for a lot of stakeholder voice when making the policy, so all of us will be involved. That looked like everyone. Okay, cool. Next question. So where is your school currently in terms of implementing a cell phone policy? So just like our question before of where's our cell phone, this is not, no shame in this. We're just seeing where we're at ranging from you have a policy and it's going really well, it's being implemented, it's successful, to you don't have a policy currently, which again is okay. You don't need one until July. you're working on a policy, and maybe for some of us it's not really the priority right now, which is also a valid reason. We have some time to work on this, but wanted to see where we are as a group. So it looks like many of us have a policy right now, which is great. We also acknowledge that we are a statewide SELPA of charter schools that have a lot of different types of programming. So we might have some schools that, such as independent study or virtual schools, where there's a lot of technology use in general. So this might be another way we need to consider. You will learn when I send out the information about AB 3216 that there is a lot of flexibility in how a school creates their policy. So I think there's a lot of room to make it contextual to your specific school site. And how are we doing? Okay, we're moving on. So this one I think will be kind of a word cloud situation. In one word, describe your relationship with your phone. So let's reflect a little on our own fraught. I couldn't agree more. That might be my word choice too. So here we wanted to really make sure that we're also considering, like, us as staff also have our own relationship with the phone, which could be positive or negative, might serve as a distraction in our jobs, or might be very useful if we're needing to get in contact with people. Complicated, I'm seeing, is also showing up pretty big. Dependent. I like the my second brain, because yeah, we rely on our technology for a lot of support in our busy jobs. Great. So if you're not familiar with the word cloud, the bigger the word means more folks have input that same term. But this is great. This is a really helpful way for us to gauge where we're at and kind of see how we are feeling as a education community. So it looks like complicated is remaining the biggest one, independent. Relatable, yep. And Caitlin, I can't quite see the number of participants, so you go whenever we have all our answers in, or majority. Okay, shifting our thought now over to what's going on when we're thinking about students and their use of technology. So what's coming to mind when we're thinking about students' personal technology use? I'll also share as we're inputting our answers that when Caitlin and I were coming up with some of these questions and kind of planning for this, we realized that technology is a huge umbrella term, and there's a lot of different ways we might feel differently depending on what kind of technology we're talking about. So here we went with the term personal technology use, just thinking about things outside of school related assignments, because we also know in this tech age, many of us are having students work on online curriculum, which we might feel a lot different about depending than how they're using their phones. Oh, I like this. Assistive technology is liberating. Yeah, so we need to acknowledge at the same time that there's a lot of useful components to it, as well as ways it might make our folks feel disconnected, dependent, isolated. I've seen my first instance of a AI answer, so using AI incorrectly, knowing that that's something that they have a lot of access to. And I don't know about anyone else on here, but I'm certainly not an AI expert, and how we as staff are going to navigate how AI might come into the classroom. We also have folks sharing about, feeling that companies are maybe leveraging addictive techniques to hook students. So I think that's an important perspective that I've actually talked with Dino about, that we know that, there's for-profit companies behind a lot of the apps and ways students use technology, so they might not be as concerned about well-being as they are about profit. Great. And we're happy to summarize these answers and share them out after the event if folks are curious to see what other folks have put in. Okay, If you could change one thing about tech culture in our schools, what would it be? So, huge question. There might be a lot of things you're thinking about, connecting it to learning. Hmm. I'm seeing someone also share that they're interested in a tech course for the younger students. Oops. Oh, Mentimeter is doing its own thing now. But yeah, about the curriculum. Oh, oh, cool. I guess it summarized it for us. So we're seeing tech in use right in front of us. This might be a Mentimeter using its own AI to categorize these. But yeah, so we will be, I have found a couple different options for curriculum, at least one of which is free for schools to use on how to engage students in learning about healthy tech use. So that's something that will be coming in the follow-up email. Maybe we'll give a few. Oh, okay. I think that must have been all the answers. So thank you all for participating. I really appreciate us engaging in that and kind of framing, thinking about where we are right now for technology. And so I'm going to do a quick check to see if Dino is about ready and reshare my screen. Let me try this.
I am ready to go whenever.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'm just going to do an intro for you, Dino.
Cool.
Thanks so much. All right, so again, I'm really, really excited to introduce Dino Ambrosi. He is the founder of Project Reboot. This is an organization that was developed at UC Berkeley with the mission to help people find healthier relationships with technology. You might have heard a bit about Dino's work already as we've been promoting this event. And so you might know that the first course was leading to students able to cut their screen time by 3.5 hours per day, which we know could go a long way to meeting some of those interests that we shared on the Mentimeter of balance. So since then, Project Reboot is now international. I think it's reached about 30,000 people worldwide with a specific focus on students. So that's why we were happy to bring Dino here to talk with us so that we can have some considerations of how we'll talk to students that we're working with. And so really grateful Dino's speaking with us today, both about his experience as a former tech addict and also the expertise on engaging young people in this discussion so that we can really make sure that they have voice and understanding their perspective as we think about technology and potentially make changes as a result of this Phone Free School Act. So with that, I'm going to stop share so Dino can. And thanks again, Dino. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me on. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get this pulled up. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see this. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I do want to apologize because I am going to start off this workshop by freaking you out a bit. And I'm sorry for that, but I promise things will lighten up. So just bear with me. But the dots on this screen represent an adult life in months, assuming a life expectancy of 90. So for an 18-year-old, this would be a pretty optimistic guess at how many months they have left. So take a second to take that in. It's probably not as many as you would expect. And we also have to take into account things like sleep, which should hopefully take up about 1/3 of those months if we're sleeping 8 hours a night. Not that that's a bad thing. Obviously, sleep is great. For someone that works just a standard 40-hour per week job until they're 65 years old, they'll spend about 126 of these months actively working or studying. On average, about 18 will be spent driving, 36 cooking and eating, 36 doing chores and errands, and about 27 in the bathroom and taking care of personal hygiene, which is the long 2+ years that this hypothetical 18-year-old is in for. So that leaves 334 months, optimistically, for everything else in life. So I want you all to just take a moment and ask yourself, what do you think deserves the largest chunk of that remaining free time? How do you want it to be spent? And if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and drop whatever comes to mind into the chat, and I'd love to see some responses. So I'll give you a second to do that. Family. Yeah, absolutely. Traveling, connections, family, definitely the dominant answer. In nature with family, yeah, 100%. With loved ones, time outdoors. And Jacob says TikTok, obviously. I'm gonna guess there's maybe some sarcasm there. Uh, Outdoors adventure. Yeah, love it. We got a very outdoorsy group here. That makes sense for all being in California. It's awesome. Faith and family, wonderful. Anything but work. Sports. Yeah. Yeah, so all the boxes on our bucket list, right? All the places that we want to travel to, the adventures we want to go on, the people that we love that we want to spend time with, our hobbies, our passions, our interests, the things that bring us joy. When we get to the ends of our lives and we look back and reflect, it will almost certainly be moments from this free time that stick out most in our memory. And I've asked over 50,000 students now this same question of what deserves the largest chunk of your free time? And I have genuinely never gotten the answer TikTok. So it's funny you put that, Jacob, because no kid has ever told me that. But does anyone want to guess, if you had to give an estimate, how many of these 334 months do you think the average 18-year-old in the US is currently on pace to spend looking at a screen non-productively? So take a guess. Go ahead and drop it in the chat. 300, 200, 50, 80 months, 100. Yeah, so we've got some guesses ranging from 50 to 300 is what I see so far, kind of hovering around 200 as an average. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do the mic drop moment here and reveal this. Actually, all of those guesses are too low. It is 312. So let me take a second to unpack this because I know this is just such a shocking stat at first glance. It feels like there's no way that this can be right. Like, where did this guy get his data from? This actually comes from Common Sense Media's Common Sense Census, which is the most in-depth report on youth screen time that I have seen. And they found that the average 13 to 18-year-old in the US spends 8 hours and 39 minutes per day on screens non-productively. Okay, so to be clear, none of this counts anything related to school. It doesn't count using Google Maps to figure out where you're going. It doesn't even count communication. Okay, this is not texting or FaceTiming. This is just time on social media sites, YouTube, Netflix, and other streaming platforms, TV, and video games alone. 8 hours and 39 minutes per day. That is the average. That means about half of them are above that. And I've seen a lot of screen time reports over the last few years. It is not uncommon to see iPhone screen time reports from high schoolers these days that are north of 10 hours per day. Like, I see that on a regular basis. So I really do believe that this number is accurate, which is terrifying to think about in this context. I mean, imagine getting to the age of 90 and seeing this graph of how you've spent all your time after the age of 18 and thinking about all the things that this time could have been used for that didn't happen because you got pulled down a rabbit hole. It's really terrifying to think about. And this is a change that happened so fast. I mean, the mass adoption of smartphones and social media, it hit us like a train. It came out of nowhere. Technology didn't used to get adopted this quickly. And I was on the very forefront of that. I was one of the guinea pigs. I had Instagram came out when I was in 7th grade. So I was really in that first batch. And this was actually me at the time. As you can tell, I was not exactly a social media influencer by any means, but I was one of the first kids to get on this. And I had a very rough and bumpy ride with my personal relationship with technology. And Eric, I'll just note that you're right. There is some overlap with other activities. It's really hard to figure out exactly how much overlap there is. So it may not 100% come out of free time, but that number of 312 is accurate. So it does take up the right percentage of the total graph. But yeah, personally for me, when I was first getting on technology, I'd say my relationship with it was pretty positive. But over time, and especially after I left high school and went to college, it took a big turn south. And I developed this very severe addiction to Instagram and YouTube in particular that really hampered my first 2.5 years as a UC Berkeley student. And I struggled with that with no real resources or guidance. I mean, I remember Googling in 2017 the term smartphone addiction, and almost nothing was coming up. So I just assumed that this was because I was weak or it was my fault. I put all the blame on myself. And it actually took me leaving college and going and working an internship on the other side of the country to make some tangible change here. I tried and failed to get my screen time down for years. And it wasn't until I got out of that environment of being a college student uh, until I was actually able to make some significant progress. And after really making a lot of improvements to my own tech use, I came back to UC Berkeley for my senior year of college, and I created this semester-length course called Becoming Tech Intentional to try to help my peers go through a similar tech transformation. And over the last 4 years now, in addition to teaching that course, I've traveled all over the world. I've spoken to over 75 schools now, to a total of more than 50,000 students. I did a TEDx talk with that month's visualization that you just saw that went pretty viral online. It's got over 3 million views on YouTube right now. So that's led to a lot of people from all over the world reaching out. I actually started an online community, kind of like a tech addiction support group, and had conversations with people on 6 different continents about their relationships with technology. So I've been able to, I think, get a pretty unique perspective into how kids are viewing technology, what approaches actually work to get them to make sustainable changes to their behavior, and what the limitations are of the current solutions that we have available. So over the course of the next 40 to 45 minutes here, I'm going to try to give you just a 40,000 foot overview of all of the key learnings of my last 4 years. So we'll start by diving into this concept of tech addiction and understanding, like, why does this actually happen in the first place? We'll look at the current solutions that are available and their limitations, and then we'll actually talk about what we can do to create change on the individual level, because it sounds like for us as well, our relationships with technology are not perfect. So I'll share some strategies that you can implement into your own life by the end of this presentation. We'll also talk about how to address this on campus and in the household. If any of you in here are parents, I know this is an extremely difficult conversation to navigate at home. There's been a lot of learnings over the years of what kind of strategies work in bringing up screen time as a conversation with students. So I'll be sharing that as well. So looking at this graph and asking ourselves, why is this the case? How can it be that students are spending this much time? I think the first question that comes up naturally is, well, maybe this is just what they want, right? They seem to really be drawn to this stuff. I mean, if we were to ask them, how do you want to spend this free time? Maybe this is what they would say. And as I've mentioned before, that's not what I've seen. So there's this big difference between how they actually want to use it and how they are using it. And I think the core underlying reason for that difference is the fact that smartphones in particular have provided us with the quickest, easiest escape from uncomfortable emotions that we have ever had. If you are feeling stressed, or you are feeling bored or anxious or socially isolated or awkward or whatever it is, all it takes to escape that uncomfortable emotion for the time being is pulling your phone out of your pocket, unlocking it, and going to whatever your distracting app of choice is. The problem is that's a very slippery slope, because the more that you turn to your phone as an escape, the more that habit becomes ingrained, the lower your tolerance for all forms of discomfort becomes, and it can pull you into this kind of downward spiral that I call turning to the digital pacifier, that actually makes your relationship with technology mindless. This is what happened to me during college. It started with me struggling in my classes in that first semester. UC Berkeley engineering course is very, very difficult. I'd never done anything like it. I actually got a 20% on my first math test of college, which was a big wake-up call. I was good enough at math to know that 20% was a very bad score. So that incited a lot of stress in my life. And without even really realizing it, I just started to rely on my phone as my means of coping with all of that stress and discomfort. And it, as I said, just spiraled me into this chronic dependence that really disrupted the first 2.5 years that I was in college. And when I taught that course about phone addiction, the first question on the application that all the Berkeley students answered was, describe your current relationship with your phone. And their responses really pointed to this as well. I had one student say, my current relationship with technology is trash. I scroll on Instagram or TikTok late at night, knowing that I need to sleep, but feeling like I physically can't get off my phone. I waste so much time. I feel like an addict. My phone enables my procrastination, and I hate it. So this is one example of many. And I was actually genuinely surprised by how prevalent this kind of response was because, as I said, I mean, for a while, I thought this was just a result of me being weak or it was just my personal problem. I didn't understand how widespread this has become. Now, that said, these are responses from students that have gone out of their way to apply to take this class about reducing screen time. So it's kind of a subset of students. And I'm curious to get your perspective of if we were to poll high school students, what percentage of them do you think would self-identify as being addicted? Like, do they recognize that this is a problem? Is there a level of awareness? So go ahead and drop in the chat what your best guess would be of, again, if we were to go to a random high school, what percentage of them would tell you, yes, I'm addicted to my phone? Okay, so seeing guesses ranging from 20% to 80%. Yeah, so seems like we're kind of split here. Some people are down in the 10 to 20, some people are much higher, 95. It's always interesting to see these responses. So I've actually been able to do this at a number of schools now. This is a new thing we've added to the presentations that I do when I go to give an assembly at schools, and similar to the Mentimeter thing, actually. And so we've done this at, I believe, about 15 schools now this semester. And just a couple weeks ago, we were at the largest public high school in Colorado. It's called Cherry Creek. And we had them fill this out, and these were their responses. So 71% of the high school students at Cherry Creek High School self-identify as being addicted. And this is par for the course across a really wide range of kinds of schools. I've done, very selective elite private schools in the Bay Area. I've done all sorts of public schools, charters. This is about what it comes out to at pretty much every school, even at middle schools as well. They're usually in the 60 to 70% range. So this issue is not due to a lack of awareness. Like, they get it. They see that it's a problem. And when you ask them as well, on a scale of 1 to 5, how happy are you with your relationship with technology? These are typically the responses that you see. This is also from Cherry Creek. So it's actually much more common for students to say, I'm a 1 or a 2 out of 5 than a 4 or a 5. It is more likely that they actively dislike their relationship with technology than actively like it. Now, this should make it super obvious. If this many students are struggling with this, it can't be because there's something wrong with them individually, right? There is this deeper, larger issue at play. And as Austin kind of already touched on, I think a huge factor is just the way that the companies that create this technology make money. And an interesting way to think about it is, last year, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube collectively made over $100 billion in revenue. That is so much money. There's less than 8 billion people on the planet. They're making more than $10 per person alive. And not everyone is using their platforms. And beyond that, the people that do use them, hardly anyone pays them anything. Like, when I go ask students at schools, it's maybe between 2 and 4% of the students that have something like YouTube Premium. But almost all of us log on to YouTube or make posts on Instagram, and we don't have to pay a dime. So the thing to realize is the only reason it's free for us is because we are not their customers. We are their product. Their customers are advertisers. They sell our time, attention, and information. And that means their bottom line, how much money they take home at the end of the day, it's really just a question of how much of this remaining free time can they capture. And they are doing everything that they can to get more of it. They've hired some of the smartest people on the planet. One of my really close friends, and actually now a partner at Project Reboot, is a cognitive neuroscientist at UC Berkeley named Dr. Sahar Youssef. And back in 2012, she was doing her PhD at Berkeley, working in an addiction lab. She is literally studying the neuroscience of addiction. And she was getting poaching emails from major technology companies in the Bay Area offering her 4 times as much money as she was currently making to leave her studies and go work for them. Okay, now she said no, but there's a lot of people that didn't. Some of the smartest people on the planet are working together to figure out how to keep us scrolling. And anytime one of these platforms has a breakthrough, they all have to do the same thing because they're competing over this finite amount of free time that we have. Now, this has happened in a lot of ways, but recently TikTok had this massive breakthrough, and it just fundamentally changed the way that social media works. So what they realized is that if you're a social media app, it actually doesn't make any sense to let the people using your app decide what they want to look at. That was their big breakthrough. And that's not how social media used to work. I mean, the first version of Instagram looked like this. This was what everyone started using. This is what we signed up for. I mean, does anyone remember this app? It was great. It was actually a tool for our social lives. This is what social media looks like. When you scrolled through this feed, you saw friends and family members and maybe a couple of celebrities or athletes that you decided you wanted to see posts from, but you were in control. And then TikTok comes along and they realize, why would we limit ourselves to only showing content from accounts you've opted into? We'll just pull from everything that's ever been uploaded. We'll have way more content to show you. You'll scroll for longer, you'll watch more ads, and we'll make more money. It worked. Time on Instagram plummeted. So what did Instagram have to do? They had to add Reels, and YouTube had to add Shorts, and Snapchat added Spotlight. And now, I don't know if you all have seen this, but literally LinkedIn has Reels now. Like LinkedIn is like the new TikTok. I mean, it's the worst collection of content on the internet, but it's there. It's really wild how much all of these platforms have changed. And there's an interesting activity that I've been asking people to do recently that I'd actually love to try right now. So if you have Instagram on your phone, what I want to ask you to do is, I know this sounds a bit ironic, but take your phone out, go to Instagram, and scroll through your first 15 posts on your feed and count how many come from someone that you personally know. And when you reach post number 15, go ahead and drop in the chat the number of posts that you have scrolled through that actually come from someone that you have a personal relationship with. Okay, so far, everything is between 0 and 4. It looks like 0 is the most common answer that we've gotten so far, which is typical for when I do this exercise. So yeah, in my experience doing this, I've had about 250 people do this thus far, and it seems to me that the most common answer is 0, and the average is about 2, maybe even actually a little bit less than 2. So it begs the question genuinely, like, is it even social media anymore? Honestly, I mean, I would say it's actually closer to anti-social media. And when we look at the progression that these apps have gone through over the course of the last 10 to 15 years, it's actually kind of reminiscent of something that happened in a different industry back in the 20th century. And that's not a coincidence. That playbook has been copied by the social media platforms to get us to scroll more than we want to. That other industry that social media has taken inspiration from is actually the food industry. So in the 20th century, they figured out how to process food into this artificial form that we have a tendency to overeat. As they were competing with each other to make products that consumers craved, they stumbled upon two main breakthroughs. The first was that they could make their food more stimulating. They artificially concentrated the aspects of food that give us this dopamine response, that activate our reward system, primarily sugar. They also, and this is the big one that people don't often realize, they made food less satiating. They figured out how to take out the fiber and the protein that our bodies rely on as a signal that we should start feeling full. So even as you're consuming all these calories while eating candy, your body isn't registering that. You don't get the ghrelin release that is required for you to actually recognize I should stop eating. So we tend to overeat. My conviction is that social media has really done the same thing for connection. What candy is to food, social media has become to connection. It's a more stimulating, less satiating version of it. Why do we get so much dopamine scrolling through Instagram and TikTok? There's multiple things at play. I mean, part of it is they've copied the structure of slot machines and they're using this intermittent positive reinforcement. But a lot of the content that we look at that leads to this big dopamine release, the reason our brains like it so much is because it activates the parts of our brains that are associated with relationships. Right? We scroll through, we look at these videos of someone talking directly into a screen, and it's not just anyone, it's someone that's attractive or that we look up to or that's relatable, and it feels like we're having a conversation with them, right? Or someone does something that's absolutely hilarious and it makes us laugh. I mean, what's the whole point of humor? It's for social bonding. That's why you laugh out loud louder at a movie theater than you do watching a movie alone at home on your couch. Okay, so they've found ways to feed us content that tricks our brain into feeling connected as the app isolates us. And that content has increasingly come from people that we do not know. So when you put the phone down, you're still hungry because nothing has happened for your social life. It hasn't brought you any level of satisfaction. They've lulled us into this more passive use of their application that's not the active social tool that it used to be. And we're starting to see some negative results of this, unsurprisingly. I mean, the rate at which teenagers are reporting loneliness is staggering. Look at how much it has skyrocketed since 2010. What happened in 2010? Social media on smartphones went mainstream. Now, this peaked over COVID, but it had been going up for a long, long time. And there was a study that came out last year in 2024. It was called the American Time Use Survey. And they looked at how Americans were spending their time. And what they found was that 15 to 24-year-olds, relative to 2004, are spending 70% less time hosting or attending social events. Okay, we have replaced real, authentic, in-person connection with an artificial version that's being spoon-fed to us by our phones. And that's a huge problem. Okay, the importance of social connection is so deeply profound. One of my favorite studies that illustrates this is the Harvard Study of Adult Development. It's actually, I think, the most interesting study that's ever been run. It's been going for over 80 years. They've followed over 2,000 people from early childhood all the way to death, and they've measured everything they could about their lives in an effort to try to figure out what are the key ingredients in a good life. One where people report high levels of life satisfaction, where they're happy and they're healthy. And at the top of the list of all the things that they measured, by a country mile, was the quality of our closest relationships. It was not close. And they also found that those in the study that were identified as lonely had worse health outcomes. They had earlier cognitive decline, and they actually passed away earlier on average. And there was another meta-analysis that corroborated this finding. This came out of BYU a few years ago, and they looked at over 200,000 data points of people around the age of 65. They looked at all their different lifestyle factors, and then they waited for 20 years to see who was still around. And then they looked back at their data and tried to isolate what that we measured was most predictive of dying early. And at the top of the list, above smoking 15 cigarettes a day or drinking 6 drinks or being physically inactive or obese, was lacking social connection. Okay, it was the single most important lifestyle factor, because when we lack connection, our body goes into this state of chronic stress. We are wired to be surrounded by people. Back in the olden days, if you didn't have deep social connections, it was hard to survive. You relied on the tribe around you. So this is why the past US Surgeon General Vivek Murthy came out and said that we are in an epidemic of loneliness downstream of social media and smartphones. And when we take that into account, this graph actually becomes a lot scarier. A lot scarier. When we look at it for the first time, we usually think of this screen time just as something that's replacing other activities. We think about the opportunity cost of what it could have been used for instead. But it's so much deeper than that, because this screen time actually changes us. Okay, it's affecting how we think. It's making us more distracted. It's affecting how we feel on a daily basis. It's making us more anxious and depressed. And it's affecting what we believe about ourselves and the world around us. We're more divided. We're more self-critical because of the time that we're spending on these social media platforms. And when we look at the set of solutions that we have to address this problem right now, they're just not really enough. Like, we need to do more. So what I'm seeing right now is I love the fact that there's a lot of cultural momentum around solving this. That's extremely, extremely encouraging. I mean, so many people are rallying around changing the way that teenagers and younger kids are using technology, and that's wonderful. And what I see is there's really 2 main approaches that we can follow. We can focus on restriction or empowerment, and they're not mutually exclusive to each other. We can do both of these at the same time. And for younger kids, I think often restriction is more important than empowerment. And then as they get older, I think empowerment really becomes necessary to prepare them to leave the nest and live life with a phone in their pocket. But right now, most of the momentum with things like the Phone Free Schools Act is in the realm of restriction. That's our primary early response. And I mean, it makes sense because it's easier, right? Just taking the phones away, limiting access, it is the simplest thing that we can do. And I'm not saying that this shouldn't happen. I am a full-blown proponent of phone-free schools from kindergarten through the end of 8th grade. I have mixed feelings about it in high school. I think there's a really interesting discussion there. Happy to have a longer chat about that in the Q&A section. I won't spend too much time on it now. But there's whole states that are passing, full on bans. And my core idea, the response I have to this is, again, not that restriction is a bad thing and we shouldn't do it, but alone it's not going to solve this problem. We have to complement it with empowerment. We have to give students the education and resources required to build a foundation of healthy tech use that serves them for the long term. Because just taking the phones away during the school day, even in the immediate term, it isn't going to solve the problem. I mean, the amount of kids that I talk to that are up until 4 in the morning every night scrolling through TikTok is appalling. They're coming to school, they're not in a physiological state to even be able to learn. So whether or not there's a phone in their pocket, I mean, it's kind of beyond the point. Like they can't learn if they're not sleeping. So we need to do more to try to solve this problem. And I'm really optimistic that we can do more because that course that I taught at UC Berkeley, over 110 students took it. And the average student reduced their non-productive screen time by about 3.5 hours per day. It was over 50%. Okay, that's a massive, massive change. We had some students go from 7 hours of, again, non-productive screen time down to an hour and a half. And I haven't been in touch with all the students that went through this class. I mean, I stopped teaching it in fall of 2022. It's since been passed down to some of my old students, and it's actually still running, which is really cool. But the students that I took it with, I'm still in touch with a few of them. And of those, I mean, there's a lot that still have a screen time reduction of more than 50% to this day. So I've seen these big changes happen. Now, granted, this was in a 12-week course that was 2 hours a day or 2 hours per class. And there was assignments and accountability groups, like a lot went into this change. So we've been trying to figure out on our side, like, what can we do to make the things that worked for these students in this class more accessible to a broader range of students. And that's really been my focus of the last 3 years since I graduated from college. And we have a new resource that I'm really excited to be able to share. It's actually free for all students, so you can immediately start promoting this on your campus. We partnered with what I believe to be the best screen time control app on the market right now. It's called ClearSpace. It's usually $50 a year to get a premium account to all their features. Students, as part of our partnership with them, now get free ClearSpace accounts through the end of college. So it's been made available to them, the whole version of it. And we worked with them to create this 9-day course that's effectively a condensed version of the UC Berkeley class. And we actually did that in partnership with Dr. Sahar Youssef, my friend that the tech companies were trying to poach and get to come work for them. And she's a really incredible neuroscientist that has focused a lot on cognitive training. She's now the chief science officer at Project Reboot. And we spent a lot of this year developing this 9-day microlearning curriculum with Sahar. So I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of how this course works. There will be some key ideas that you can take away for your own life. You will actually also be getting access to this course for free if you want to go through it. You'll get 30 days on ClearSpace without having to enter in a credit card or anything so that you can go through the 9-day program if you're interested in doing so. So the first thing that we focus on is helping you understand why you're opening apps in the first place. And this is super important. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they realize they're overusing their phone or they might have a tech addiction, their immediate response is, okay, well, I'll set a time limit because it's the amount of time that I'm spending that's the problem. The issue is, I've never met anyone that little pop-up actually works for, right? You can just do 2 clicks and then you're back on Instagram for another 15 minutes. It's really not so much the amount of time we're spending that's the core of the issue. It's the reasons we're opening the apps in the first place, right? And often it is this habitual, mindless, avoidant response to stress, boredom, or anxiousness. So what we did with ClearSpace was we made this form that pops up as you're on your way to a distracting app every single time you go to use one. And it asks you, why are you actually here? Right? So if you're going to Instagram, it'll ask you, do you have something specific to do? Are you posting? Are you messaging to someone? Are you searching for something? Or are you trying to catch up? Or is this a means of avoiding boredom or stress or loneliness? And beginning to understand the patterns behind scrolling is the first step to actually sustainably change the behavior. I mean, there were a number of times where I deleted Instagram and YouTube when I was in college. And even that didn't work because I hadn't solved the root of the problem. And there's many other ways to distract yourself online. So I really think this is the critical first step and the core of what made that course at Berkeley so effective for the students was focusing on the root of the problem. So we talk about that a lot in the course and what we can retrain our response to discomfort to be, what the better alternatives are, breaks that actually genuinely restore us. The second thing that we do is we help students in the program identify what is their ideal relationship with technology. What would it look like for you to be 5 out of 5 happy with it? And I want to be super clear. I'm not saying that the ideal relationship is abstinence. I'll be upfront. I'm on social media still, even for how bumpy my relationship with it has been, even for the fact that it has changed so drastically since I first started using it. There are still legitimate reasons to keep it in your life. I think completely getting rid of it and going back to carrier pigeons for communication is an overreaction. I think what we really need to do is change our mindset around how we use this stuff with a very simple main point in mind, which is if technology is free, it's not actually free. You're just paying for it with your time. And it's actually making money off the time that you're spending. So there's a thought experiment that I like to do to help make this more concrete. I want to ask you all, if you were to wake up tomorrow and all the social media platforms decided, you know what, we're not actually going to charge people money, sorry, we're not actually going to be free anymore. We're going to start charging people a monthly subscription fee to keep their accounts active. How much could they get you to pay? So think about your favorite social media. I mean, let's maybe take Instagram as an example. If they started charging you, what's the maximum monthly subscription fee that they could get out of you? Go ahead and drop that in the chat. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Okay, so far everyone has said nothing. $2 a month. 5 to 10 is the max so far. 20, free 99. I love that, Andrew or Sean. 20 bucks. Okay. Yeah. So these responses are pretty standard for when I ask this question. I mean, almost everyone is in this range of I wouldn't pay anything to maybe $20 per month. The highest serious response that I've ever gotten to this question came from a middle school girl. And she looked me dead in the eyes with a straight face and said, I would pay $250 a month for TikTok. And we hear that and we think, okay, first off, like, where are you getting $250 a month? You're 11 years old. Like, do you have a side hustle? How big is your allowance? But also, that's $3,000 a year to scroll through TikTok videos. We hear that, we think there is absolutely no way that it's worth that much. But I would say in a certain way, we're actually already paying more. So here's the second question to think about. If you had the option to buy an extra hour of the day that you could use however you wanted, hanging out with family, doing something you enjoy, sleeping for an extra hour, you could even use this hour to work and make all that money back and more. How much would you pay per hour? Now, everyone's going to have a different answer to that question. So for the sake of this thought experiment, I'm just going to put in a placeholder. Okay, I'm going to say we value our time at a rate of $20 an hour. Again, different for everyone. Plug in whatever number makes sense to you. But if you're spending just 2 hours a day on social media and there's 30 days in a month, you're basically paying $1,200 per month for social media with your time. So we think about it in this way and we realize, wow, many of us actually are overpaying. And so my ask of students when I go give an assembly is very simple. It's just to figure out, what does it actually mean for you to get a good deal out of these apps? And there's no one right answer to that, right? I genuinely think you can spend 2 to 3 hours a day on them and have a better relationship with them than someone that's spending 30 minutes. It totally depends on how and why you're using them. But you have to ask yourself, what value does this add to my life and how much of my time is that worth? Any additional time you're spending, you're getting ripped off and they're making money off of that time. So don't overpay. The second thing that we talk a lot about in the program is the fact that obviously not all screen time is the same. I would say we actually have content diets that are, in my opinion, just as important as our nutritional diets. And there's a tool I like to use to evaluate the quality of the content that someone's consuming that I call the content map. And it looks at 2 things. First off, what is the primary nature of the content you're consuming? Is it entertaining or informative? Some content can be both, and that's great. It can also be neither, in which case I would say it's just really not worth your time. See LinkedIn Reels for an example of that. Again, like worst content on the internet. But we also have to ask ourselves, how long are the individual pieces of content that we're looking at? Because there's a huge difference between spending 2 hours watching a movie where you are following one storyline for the entire time. You're getting to know the characters, you're seeing them go through different social situations, you're kind of putting yourself in their shoes. It's actually been shown that engaging with long form fictional stories makes you more empathetic for that very reason. I actually think that could be a great use of free time in moderation. That compared to TikTok is drastically different because the average TikTok video is about 15 seconds long. So in that same 2 hours, you'd watch almost 500 videos. And it shouldn't be surprising. I mean, when you're switching your attention over and over and over again, constantly for hours and hours a day, it withers away your ability to focus. There's all these studies that are coming out and validating that. And I don't think we often realize what a massive deal that is. I mean, obviously, the thing that I think we initially jump to is, well, okay, reading is harder, right? For students, critical thinking and doing well in school gets affected. And don't get me wrong, that's super important. But more fundamentally, just the basic requirements of being a functioning human being. You need to have an attention span. Your relationships require you to have an attention span. Having a good conversation with someone requires that you're able to sit with them and give them the gift of your attention for more than 15 seconds before getting distracted. Otherwise, you forget things that they told you. You don't become as conscientious and as good of a friend as you otherwise could be. So my main takeaway when we look at this is it's really simple. This bottom left corner, I would just view it as dessert. It's like the candy of the internet. And that's not to say that we should never have any of it. Like some candy is okay, right? But it shouldn't be 80+% of the time that we spend consuming content online, especially in comparison to the stuff on the top half of this graph. I mean, it's easy to forget what the internet is. It's all of the information that's ever been recorded at our fingertips all the time. That's so powerful. There's so much that we can do with it. It unlocks so many doors for us if we really use it with intention. But unfortunately, those intentions are not quite enough. For the vast majority of people, myself included, we have to stack the cards in our favor because the apps in this bottom left corner, they're so well designed at getting us to use them unintentionally. But fortunately, there's a lot that we can do to regain control. So some really simple changes that we can make. One, we can change our physical environments. A super easy way to do this, move the phone charger to the other side of the room or to a different room entirely. In all the things I've tested for myself, honestly, I found if I can get myself to be off of screens for the last 30 minutes of the day and the first 30 minutes of the day, the other 23 hours, it's so much easier to use them the way that I actually want to. There was also a study that came out of a university in Texas back in 2017 that was absolutely fascinating. So these researchers had people do an IQ test where they varied where their phone was in relation to the laptop they were taking the test on. So the first group takes this test and their phone is in a different room and they score pretty well, slightly above average. The second group, they bring the phone a little bit closer. And interesting part of the study, it's not actually even their phone. It's a prop iPhone that's turned off. There's no notifications. It's not buzzing. It's not glowing, nothing like that. They put this phone in the participant's pocket or in a bag right next to them. And immediately you see their score start to dip. And then the last group, they put the phone on the desk right next to them. And again, the scores dip even farther. So the takeaway is when your phone is nearby, it actually acts as a brain drain. Some portion of your attention, whether you realize it or not, is getting pulled into it and preventing you from really bringing 100% of your brain power to the task at hand. So I know a lot of us have our phones on the desk right next to us right now. Put them out of sight, like at least behind the laptop or something like that, so that you can actually fully engage. It's amazing how big of a difference that can actually make. And then next, there's so much that we can do to make our devices themselves less addicting and distracting. And my main idea here is really simple. Don't accept the default settings on your phones. Out of the box, the way that they come naturally for you, it's not set up for you. So much of it is set up to profit off of you, and you can do better. Okay, there's so many different tips and tricks that we could go through here. The simplest one that I should definitely call out is notifications. My goodness, do social media apps abuse the living daylights out of notifications? I mean, the excuses they come up with to make your phone buzz in your pocket. second aunt that you haven't talked to in 5 years has just posted 14 photos to Facebook. Don't you need to stop what you're doing right now and go pull out your phone and check it? It's like anything that they can come up with, they're going to use it because they know that's the best way to get you on the app. Regain control. Turn off any notifications that don't actively deserve your attention. You can put them into scheduled summaries that come in at dedicated times throughout the day. And then I quickly wanted to walk through why we chose ClearSpace as our partner. I think it is the most effective tool for reducing screen time because it's got a couple of very short, sweet, simple behavioral interventions built into it. So the first core feature of it is actually this mindful pause. So every time you go to use a distracting app, ClearSpace interrupts you. It actually forces you to go through this breathing delay, which is pretty annoying, but that's the whole point of the app. And it's really amazing how well it works. It forces you to recognize when you're turning to it without a purpose. And then it actually asks you, hey, how long do you want to spend on this app right now? So I can say, okay, I'm going to go on Instagram for 10 minutes. After that time is up, it kicks me off the app. I have to go through another breathing delay to start a session again. And I've given myself a budget. I only get 4 uses on Instagram per day. And if I decide that I do want to spend more time than that, ClearSpace will let me. I can start a 5th session on Instagram, but there's a consequence, which is that it texts my friend and tells them that I broke my streak on the ClearSpace app. And it's really amazing how well that works. For me, it's the biggest motivator. And actually, before my first session on a distracting app each day, it will show me, hey, here's how much time you spent, or how much time your friend spent on their phones yesterday and how many times they opened their distracting apps. And I can send them little messages of support and kudos. So it's incredibly effective. And it's also, we believe, the best way to deliver real-time learning to drive behavior change. I mean, imagine if you were trying to kick a smoking addiction and you had a program that could pull the cigarette out of your hand as you were going to light up every single time and have you go do something else. I mean, it's a really amazing delivery mechanism for learning. So that's why we're so excited about it. One thing to note right now is that it's currently much better on iOS than it is on Android. They're working on building out the Android version now. For the time being, there's a similar app called ScreenZen that's much better for Android. It's also free to use. It just runs off donations, but you don't have to donate. And it's got a very similar feature set. So that's a good resource as well. They also both have tools on laptops. So ClearSpace has a Chrome extension and ScreenZen has a whole app on both Mac and iOS, or Mac and PC, that do very similar things. One of the things that they do is actually block all distracting videos on YouTube. So this is a huge thing for students. I mean, one of the things we have to acknowledge is it's not really the phones that are the problem. It's actually the internet. And if your students are at a school with a one-to-one device program, they've got all the access to internet and stuff anyway, to YouTube and stuff anyway, right? And I often think that's actually a bigger source of distraction because you can look productive on your laptop. You can't look productive on a phone, right? So, you'll walk around classrooms and you'll see kids playing games and watching YouTube and stuff like that. So there is a really helpful thing that they offer, which is this Chrome extension that blocks distracting videos. So it's just the search bar and the accounts you're subscribed to. Now you're actually in control of what you're consuming. And then the last thing that I'll call out as a really important aspect of our environments is our social environment. The way that our friends and family use technology will always have a huge impact on how we use it ourselves. And unfortunately, right now, for so many kids, and this breaks my heart, they're in this position of needing to decide between being chronically online or socially isolated. And that sucks. It's really, really hard. A lot of them hate it. And this is totally by design by Snapchat, right? I mean, they set a brilliant trap. They built a better version of texting. They made this communication app that had all of texting's features and more. And they gave it to all of us for free, and everyone got on it. And then once they had all of us, they started turning it into an app that monetizes our time and attention. And some of the decisions they've made, it's so obvious they're just trying to maximize time on platform. Why do you think there are these Snapchat streaks? It's kids get a point every time they send a Snapchat to and from each other. And they add up day after day. And for a lot of them, this is their measure of the quality of their friendships is not the quality of their conversation, but the frequency of their communication, even though they're literally just sending pictures of the ceiling in many cases, right? So they feel the need to be on it all the time. They also have these snap scores on their profiles, which is your like metric of how many Snapchats you've sent and received. I saw a snap score the other day for a 22-year-old that was 1 million. Okay, she'd been on Snapchat for 6 years. That's 500 Snapchats a day for 6 years. That is unbelievable, right? So Snapchat's gotten really good at getting people to stay on the platform. And that means for a lot of kids, unfortunately, like they kind of need to use it because all the group chats are there. They're going to be left out. So we're trying to change that with Project Reboot. And really, I mean, this is the reality. Like if we're actually going to get out of this problem, we need to have a cultural change among students. And that actually has to be driven by them, right? If the norms and expectations that drive their relationships with technology are going to shift in any direction, it has to come from them. So we've been working with schools all over California, both at the high school and college level. We now have some clubs in other states as well, to help give students a platform to share their perspectives on this. We're actually getting a bunch of students at all the high schools and colleges to submit these 60-second or less videos with a message that they wish someone would have told them when they first got onto a smartphone, so that we can have this library of perspectives to share with younger kids as they're starting their relationships with technology. They're also working on finding ways for us to reclaim the connection that social media has taken from us. So we actually just got the first sample of the Project Reboot conversation cards, which I'm super excited about. It's 150 questions that were pulled together by the Youth Advocacy Network, and we're starting to distribute these to all the schools that we work with as something that can be put on lunch tables to just drive better interaction with each other on campus. And get them to, in the same way that if you're eating too much candy, the answer isn't just eat less candy, it's eat real, genuine food, right? You'll be less drawn to candy. Same goes for connection, right? So we're really trying to make that more available for students. So those are the 3 steps to the program: reboot, rethink, and redesign. Again, there's this 9-day course that I think is a nice little intro to it, gives you this condensed way to go through this reset of your tech habits. It takes between 2 and 10 minutes per day. So we'll send out a link so you can get access to that if you're interested. And again, that link will work for your students as well. If they go through the student verification process, they get free accounts through the end of college. I now wanted to quickly switch gears and just talk a little bit about how to approach this more philosophically, whether as a parent or as a school admin or a teacher. I wanted to summarize really quickly, what are we actually shooting for? What is healthy tech use? My definition is really simple. It's just adherence to informed intentions. Right? It's being very clear on how you want to use it, having the relevant context to make that decision in an informed way, and then actually sticking to it. So you've got to have awareness and understanding of the risks, consequences, and benefits, and then also the ability to engage with tech in a manner that you perceive as being healthy and productive. So intentionality. And almost every kid, when they first get online, they start off simultaneously intentional and unaware. So they ask for a phone for social media with a purpose. It's usually because they don't want to be left out, but they don't often recognize what a slippery slope it is to have it in their pocket all the time. And what will happen is eventually they'll start to drift left on this graph. They'll become progressively less intentional. And at a certain point, you might say addicted. And what happens next is really counterintuitive. And I think it's the root of a lot of the disconnect between kids and parents, students and faculty. Almost every kid has an aha moment, a wake-up call where they realize this has become a problem. And you would think that that increase in awareness would pull them back to the right on this graph. But actually, it usually makes the problem worse before it gets better. And the reason for that is the recognition that you've lost agency, that you no longer have control over your behavior, and that your phone is using you instead of you using it. That's pretty profoundly psychologically uncomfortable, especially for a kid. And the easiest way to run away from that psychological discomfort is turning to your phone. So there's a lot of kids that tell me, I think a big part of the reason that I'm on TikTok all the time is to escape the uncomfortable conversation with myself about the fact that I'm on TikTok all the time. Like, I don't want to confront it, so I just keep using it. Now, if they take the right set of steps, they can get here to this top right corner, being informed and intentional. My goal with Project Reboot, and I believe your goal as adults that interact with kids, whether that's at home or on campus, is to just do what we can to get them to this top right corner as quickly as possible. And there's a few really common mistakes that I think are made, definitely in the household, but this extends to campus as well, that prevent this from happening. So I'm going to quickly run through these. Wanted to acknowledge first, well, first off, I know it can be a little ironic coming from me. I'm 26 and I have no kids, so I'll put those cards on the table before I give any parenting advice. This is coming from students themselves. I've talked to a lot of college students and asked them, how did your parents approach this and what worked and what didn't? These mistakes are very common. They're also fixable. If you've made them, don't beat yourself up. We didn't have a handbook. We're all figuring it out. They're easily changeable. Mistake number one, letting the train leave the station too early. The general consensus among experts right now, kids really shouldn't be on smartphones until they're in high school. I know that can be a challenge. I mean, especially if all their friends are on Snapchat, you don't want them to be socially isolated, which is why I'm a big fan of organizations like Wait Until 8th or Smartphone Free Childhood. If we can reduce that peer pressure, we make things a lot easier. It doesn't mean we can't get them a phone at all. It should just be a dumb phone. It can be a Gab phone, a light phone, a Bark phone. You can get them a flip phone, but honestly, don't get them a flip phone. Their friends will definitely make fun of them for that. I mean, having to click 3 times to type the letter C it's just not cool. But there's other options than the smartphone. Other big one, underestimating kids' awareness. I think often we look at them and we assume they're down here, that they're addicted and they don't know it's a problem. And it's understandable to think that way because often when you bring it up, they roll your eyes at you, right? They say, you don't know what you're talking about. It's not an issue. You didn't grow up with it, yada, yada, yada. In my experience, that denial is often a mask for shame. Most of them, if they are struggling with it, they're actually up here. Again, 71% of students at that high school said, yeah, I'm addicted. It's very counterintuitive that this silly little rectangle sitting in your pocket can lead to a behavioral addiction. It's very common to think that that is because there's something wrong with you or that you are weak as a person. So often that's where the denial comes from is they're embarrassed about it. They're ashamed. Now, if you're a parent or a teacher or an admin and you're under this perception that they're down here, it makes sense that you would probably make mistake number 3, which is to then dwell on the negative, right? We think they have a problem. They don't know it's a problem. We need to raise their awareness. So we talk about all the consequences of this and try to get them to see what a big deal it is. The issue is that if we do that in a way that incites the very emotions that they use technology to run away from, we can actually make the problem worse. Okay, so the way in which we raise their awareness determines if they go up and to the left or up and to the right on this graph. Bringing them in this direction requires approaching this conversation in a way that makes them feel like they're not being talked down to, they're not being judged, and it requires giving them actual resources and tools that they can use to make change instead of just assuming more awareness is going to solve this problem, because awareness alone is not enough. And then the last mistake, and this is a huge one, it's cultivating a me versus you mindset. So when it comes to restrictions, again, I think there should be restrictions, especially for younger kids. We cannot expect them to self-regulate with this technology that knows how their brain works. We need to step in and put up some guardrails, especially for the younger ones. But the way in which we implement that matters a lot. The truth is, we are raising the single greatest generation of hackers the world has ever seen. I mean, their ability to get around restrictions is absolutely unbelievable. I've heard from a number of schools that have Yonder pouches, the fabric things that lock phones away, that it's created this underground magnet black market where kids are selling magnets that unlock the pouches in the bathroom at a markup after bulk ordering them on Amazon. So very entrepreneurial, but obviously undermines the whole policy in the first place. So it's not that we need to get rid of restrictions, but the way in which we implement them matters a lot. And I think what often happens is, especially in the household, it's this mindset of, I'm setting the rules and you're going to follow them because I know what's best. You're being the judge that's imposing rules upon them without their consent in many cases. And that leads to this me versus you mindset. From the kid's perspective, you're my enemy, my phone is my friend. My main piece of advice, both on campus and at home, is we need to shift to us versus addictive technology. We are on their team. We want what's best for them. Instagram and TikTok don't. They're trying to make money off of their time, right? If they can actually see that and we can bring them into the conversation, we can work with them. It requires extending an olive branch, though, and actually giving them some trust. Instead of being a judge, we need to be guides. We need to help them understand what their intentions are, what their ideal relationship with it is, and then hold them accountable to that ideal. The good news is, if you ask them the right set of questions, their intentions are actually super reasonable, right? No one wants the majority of their free time to go to passively scrolling through TikTok. They're not happy with their relationships with their phones. We can work with them. So some ways to complement that, to change the conversation: be vulnerable and transparent. look at this graph, genuinely ask yourself, where are you on the axis of intentional to addicted? Kids are not the only ones that are struggling with this, as we all know. If your relationship with your devices isn't perfect, don't hide that from them. Okay, it's a great opportunity to put yourself on their team. If you're a kid, you've been beating yourself up over this because you think it's your fault, and then you hear a parent or a teacher say, yeah, I got to be honest, I got sucked down a YouTube rabbit hole the other day, and my relationship with it could really use some work. Now it's a lot easier to have an open, honest conversation. Beyond that, be curious and open-minded. I mean, one of the things that sometimes I think adults that didn't grow up with social media lack some awareness on is in the ways that students want to use this in a positive way. It's not all bad. And there are ways that they feel they need to use it to not be isolated. So ask them, talk about the good aspects of it first. Ask them why they feel they need to use it before shifting to the problematic parts. I also think planting as much as you prune. What I mean by this is really simple. There's two main ways we can change how they use tech. We can focus on pruning or cutting away as much of the negative screen time as possible, or we can focus on planting or instilling a desire in them to leverage the positive aspects of it. And the latter is often more effective than the former. There's so many ways to do that. There's so much great content online, right? There's YouTube channels like Mark Rober makes these really cool, engaging science videos that get kids super excited about engineering. You can take online courses and learn how to cook restaurant recipes at home. You can watch YouTube videos to learn how to cook new things. I mean, if you can get a tangible benefit out of the time you spend online with a kid, TikTok will be inherently less attractive. But then lastly, as adults, you have to model the healthy tech habits yourself. You have to show them the behavior that you want to see. There's this thing called phubbing, which is short for phone snubbing. And it's when a kid makes a bid for our attention, and that bid is denied because we're pulled into technology. And this is really problematic, especially with younger kids. It's actually been shown the rate at which parents phub their kids is predictive of whether or not those kids go on to develop a mobile phone addiction. So they pay attention to how we use it, and we need to model it for them, right? Not by never using it in front of them, but by talking about it and using it with some kind of nuance, right? And then more broadly on campus, again, just expanding a little bit on what does this empowerment approach look like? It's giving them the education and the resources. I'll say, if you're interested in bringing Project Reboot to your campus, we'd love to work with you. I do these talks all over California. I'm based in Half Moon Bay, but I'm on the road all the time. So definitely happy to be a partner in that. Engage the community. Parents are a super important part of this too. Host a parent event. We've been running some student panel discussions and actually getting student perspectives out to parents, which has been really awesome. Giving the students a voice, allowing them to participate in this conversation. Many of them are really passionate about it. If you can work with them on the development of a policy, that policy is typically better received. And then support better alternatives. There's so many small, simple things that we can do to make campus a place where they feel connection. And if that happens, their phones are inherently less attractive to them. I'm going to wrap up this presentation by bringing up this graph one more time, because the good news is, for the kids that we're working with or our own kids, I mean, none of this time has actually been spent yet, right? This is under our control. We can help to change this. I'm so optimistic. There's so much momentum right now. I mean, the amount of kids that are trying to get involved in this work. I mean, I never expected Project Reboot clubs to be a thing. It was pushed by the students themselves. If we bring them into the conversation and we work with them, we can help shift the culture around screen time, and we can change this. But it's got to be a collaborative effort, and we can't just expect restriction alone to solve the problem. Okay, I hope that was helpful. We went over by about 5 minutes, but we still have some time for Q&A. I'm going to quickly just drop in the chat right now my head of partnerships name and email address. So if you are interested in bringing Project Reboot to your campus, go ahead and copy Haley's email and just drop her your name, and she'll follow up, and we'll send out all the different resources that we mentioned today. There's all sorts of links and stuff that we'll be sharing. I'll go ahead and drop the ClearSpace link in the chat right now as well, just so you have that at the time being.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Dino. Just wanted to also let people know, in case they're joining on their phones and they can't grab the links, I'll send them out in an email. And with your permission, I can send Haley's information too in the email. Yeah, great. Definitely. So I did see we had one question in the Q&A. And then, yeah, everyone else, if you have questions, feel free to put in the chat or the Q&A. Somebody wanted to know the name of your TEDx talk.
Yeah, so it's called The Battle for Your Time. exposing the cost of social media. But if you just look up Dino Ambrosi TEDx, it should pop up. Yeah.
I'll probably put it in the follow-up email too, because it's really
Cool.
good. Yeah. Let me see, any other questions? And if you'd like to ask your question live, I think you just got to raise your hand and it'll alert me so I can add you in. Oh, and someone shared they didn't see. Okay, Jeremiah's got us. I had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to the host and panelists.
Yeah, that's okay. No worries. We're navigating a Zoom webinar, different version. I was really fascinated by the research you mentioned about that social media or loneliness, I guess, it is more dangerous to our health than 15 cigarettes a day. And I mean, it shocked me. And then I'm also thinking about how much advocacy work was done so that there's warning labels and clear restrictions on cigarettes. And so I'm wondering your perspective, do you think that, having some sort of warning label on social media would be effective alongside the other things that you're mentioning?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a super strong argument for that. I think it will be effective to a point. Again, just because I don't think awareness alone is going to solve the problem, right? I mean, I do think for younger kids that are getting onto it for the first time and for their parents, that's where the awareness is really important. But we're still going to need more than that to address the problem that already exists for people who are struggling with it. So I would say, yeah, I mean, yes, but also yes, and there's more
Yes.
that we need to complement that with. Yeah.
Yeah. And if my co-hosts, let me know if I'm missing any other questions in the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to reshare my screen.
Lot of gratitude for Dino and the work that he's doing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
And now that I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the chat as easily. So while we're waiting, interrupt me anytime anybody on our panel if there's questions. Just wanted to again highlight that we will be sharing the follow-up resources as well as the information related to the Assembly Bill in an email to everyone who's registered for this event. Also, you may, if you're very interested in this and want to learn more, we really encourage you to have an opportunity to see Dino in person at our symposium event. So the Charter SELPA is hosting an event in person in February. And I'm happy to, if anyone's interested in signing up for the symposium, Dino is going to be a breakout there to continue this discussion. So if you'd like to learn more and be in person, then you can register there. Let's see. Oh yeah, and thank you for sharing that screen, Zen. I'll try and get that going. Okay, so also highlight, Dino did a much better job of highlighting all of the resources from ClearSpace. But yeah, we'll send the link so that you can have the free trial for ClearSpace. And I think I heard that students, if they go through like the verification they're a student, they also have free access, correct?
Yeah. So
Okay.
you'll get 30 days. It's not a free trial per se. You don't have to enter. We're not going to automatically bill at the end of it.
Oh, okay.
Prompt to
Got
enter
it.
payment information at the end of the 30 days. So don't worry about that. I know that's always frustrating when that happens. And then, yeah, for students, as long as they have a student email address, they enter that, they go through verification, and they get free access for the 30 days, or sorry, until the end of college. One
Awesome.
thing to note is that the link that we're going to be sending out is what unlocks the access to the Project Reboot course. So
Okay.
as of right now, by default, that won't show up unless you go through this link. This link also only works when you open it on iPhone for the time being. So
Okay.
again, Android soon, but if you open it on computer and then try to recopy it, it's not going to work. So make sure to do it on your phone itself.
Okay, got that. All right, and I think I'm going to hand it over to Jeremiah again if folks
Before we
have
do,
questions.
Yeah, before we
Oh.
do, Austin, there was one more question for
Oh
Dino.
yeah,
As
please.
far- Yeah, do you foresee some kind of pendulum swing away from technology as a response to all of this? And seems to be trying to replicate human interaction that can only happen with, well, humans. And that was from Eric.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think what we'll see, I wish there was a full swing. I think it'll probably more likely be a split. So I think as technology advances, and especially with AI is just going to be an amplifier for both the positives and the negatives, right? And so if we can find a way to use technology with intention as an enhancement to our lives, AI is only going to enable us to do that in a more powerful way. It's also going to make all the downsides more powerful as well. I mean, I call this trend, it's like the candification of everything, right? All of the different psychological drives that humans have are now possible to meet in artificial ways that don't actually bring us satisfaction, but bring us a lot of pleasure in the moment. So, I mean, AI intimacy, whether that's companionship or romantic relationships with AI chatbots, and it's going to be complemented by AI generated video, like that is coming. That's actually already here. And there are a lot of kids that are using it. So I think this is why this cultural shift and spreading the word about this is so important right now, because the earlier that we can start to drive people in the direction of using it with intention and being clear-eyed about the potential negatives, the more we can make it a pendulum swing as opposed to a split where like some people use it really well, but a lot of people it's become this kind of nefarious negative role in their lives. And then Eric says, and it seems the downsides multiply and magnify more quickly than the intentional, thoughtful, ethical efforts. Yeah, so that's a good question. I would say in some cases, yes, definitely the technology advances far faster than our ability to regulate it. That's certainly true. I mean, I love that we have this Phone Free Schools Act coming out and all the things that all the awareness now, but like social media came out in like 2010 was when it really went mainstream on smartphones. So we're 15 years down the line. We can't wait that long with AI. And fortunately, I think culture can move a little bit faster than regulation can. So that's why I'm so focused on like driving this cultural shift among students in particular. But yeah, it's definitely tough to keep pace with how quickly the technology is advancing.
All righty, just to jump in here on the book giveaways, we know you all are eagerly anticipating to see if you are a winner. The winners of our book giveaways will be contacted today via email. So congratulations if you end up winning one of those. On the next slide, we'll just kind of promo as we wrap up here. The CharterSelpa website at www.charterselpa.org has an entire mental health and behavior section under our partner services and program support, with lots of really, really helpful resources. So please check that out. There's a lot of things in our online learning center that address youth and child mental health that can be helpful to stakeholders immediately. On the last slide here, the next slide, we have, do you want to hear more from Dino? We got the opportunity to sit down with Dino and get some additional kind of key concepts and takeaways from him in podcast format as part of our Resilient Roots School Wellness podcast. We will be dropping that new episode in the coming days here. But in the meantime, please check out all of our episodes with previous summit speakers on concepts like starting mental health programs in the school setting, peer advocacy, and many other topics. So thank you all so much for joining us. I'm going to throw in the chat the link to our podcast section, but we'll be adding that to our follow-up contact all participants. Lastly, your feedback is extra important. So we're going to try to get the link here in the chat as well as the QR code there to give us a little survey. Actually, that's going to get emailed to you, so no worries. But if you want to like and subscribe today's presentation, go for it. Just kidding. All right. Any last words, Dino, before you send people off? A call to action?
Thank you all so much for coming. I'm really optimistic about how much attention this issue is getting, and thanks so much for taking the time. And yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to be a partner and help bring this message to your community. So yeah, hope to hear from you soon, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Dino. Really appreciate everybody's engagement today. The CharterSelpa team will hang for a few minutes in case anyone wants to ask any questions. But again, all of our information and resources are going to be sent out to your email.